communicate with them and bring ideas to light.
Yeah, I think Mike's got all up in Kismet from his. He's like, so I would really like it if you would do this.
I'm basically the quality assurance engineer at this point for Kismet, the Kismet open source wireless project. Check it out, kismetwireless.net.
Boom.
You will love it. New web UI.
Oh, see, UI stuff. There you go. Just an engineer.
So this is kind of a two-part question. So
No.
Tell us about something that an exploit you've seen that's very unique and novel that you've been particularly impressed by. And if you don't have something like that, maybe tell us about some emerging threats that you see that are becoming more common.
I don't know about a specific exploit or whatever. Like, so I mentioned I work for RSA. I did not work at RSA during the RSA breach that happened back in 2011, but I have had the opportunity to look through all of the data on that breach and just the organization that the attackers had. And I mean, this was, it is still, it's like, it's 2019 now, it's still like, it sounds terrible when you're talking about these people attack my company. It was beautiful. Like, I mean, the amount of like, I don't know, prep that they must have done, and the way that as different mitigations were put into place and they would circumvent, it was this like beautiful, Inigo Montoya like dance of a battle that was like, I mean, I'm just incredibly impressed by, it's not a specific exploit, it's the bringing together of, different aspects of security, or of, in this case, do you call it red teaming when it's real? Just like a very sophisticated attack executed in an incredibly organized manner that I was like, whoa, that was awesome. I mean, it was bad, but awesome, like one of those things. Like Voldemort, right? Wasn't that the thing?
Yeah.
Whatever.
There was one that I just recently saw. I missed the talk at DEF CON, but they exploited printers over fax. So they would call the fax line, inject a fax to it, and then get root access on the printer, and actually could then exploit any devices that are plugged in via USB because there was a chain of vulnerabilities. And it's that type of stuff that's like, okay, we shouldn't be using fax, but guess what? Like, everybody still uses fax. But we're also now throwing all this IoT at the world right now. So as far as the trend goes, and a lot of those companies don't have like even a year firmware update plan, let alone 3-year or a 10-year end of life plan, right? And these devices are being plugged into critical infrastructure, and I think that is scary. That's really, crazy to me that we're putting computers, literally computers that are the size of our thumbnails, in everything and everywhere, and we're plugging them in all these networks, and so I think that's going to be a trend that's going to continue. I mean, we saw it with the Mirai botnet and things like that, but I think that's going to be something we're going to see more of. But it was just really fascinating to see out-of-band attack vector through a phone line, through a fax machine that enters your network. It's like, okay, well, is this 1995? Are we, hacking into computers on phone lines again? And but it still could be a thing, right? So it's that out of band that we don't think about. It's like, oh, it's not Wi-Fi, so it must be safe. Well, yeah, but it's 433 megahertz and it's still communicating and it's connected to an Ethernet port. Like, there's bad things that can happen to that. Right. So
the best fax attack I ever saw was at a company I worked at back, this was like 2001 or something, so fax was like legitimately used more. We would get all these like free crews, like things like sent, and one of the guys at work like came back from lunch with construction paper, and he taped together 2 pieces of black construction paper and called back the number that had sent the fax, and then taped the end so it would continuously scan it. And so whoever had sent the fax now was getting a fax from us that was essentially a long black sheet of paper that just rolled through this fax machine. And he's like, it's going to cost him $75 in toner. We stopped getting those, like, travel agency spam. But I was like, simple yet elegant. She's like, no. Next question.
No. I saw a lot of questions.
Hi, so I'm a student at LDS Business College, and you keep talking about the skills gap that you're seeing. What kind of skills are in that gap that you're not not seeing being met by academia?
It's not just academia, it's all of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, coming on and having outdated knowledge, if trying to think of how to explain this one. So we've had people come in and just through the interview process, just explain simple things to me, but their knowledge is so outdated that they aren't able to explain it. Just lots of outdated tech that's being taught.
Yeah, or just, I mean, I think that's probably fair, is that was my experience as well, was just that I was like, okay, well, this was relevant 5 years ago, but it's not relevant now. And so taking what you know and then making sure that it still, I want to say matters because that sounds bad, but that it's just still relevant to the career that you're trying to get into.
Right.
Well, I actually have some students working for me right now that are in school, and it's interesting because as part of one of their like second year computer science courses, they did fit in some security. And in that course, it was the last week of the class was security. And guess what? The class was running behind, so they actually pushed security like to a single day. So I think that rather like start the semester out with, hey, let's talk about what is security, what is secure programming, how can somebody, abuse this program that you're writing. If you're writing an authentication system, for example, like what are the ways that this can be bypassed? Are you handling special characters? Do you know what sanitation is, for strings that are coming in and out? Like what are ways that, untrusted information is being put into this application? And I think that having that as the mindset, at least in the experience that I've seen, that's not being taught out of the gate. It's like, how can you do math first? It's like you do 1 + 1, you've got to learn all these steps. But if we don't talk about how we're going to secure things, like I think we're going to miss a bigger picture. So that's what I see the gap is missing that conversation or having it earlier so that it doesn't get pushed out.
How many people said they were in school right now or recently left a university or whatever? So come on, there were more hands than that. All right, get up. Now keep them up. And now of these hands, put your hand down if you attacked a SCADA system. See, so I think 2 hands went down. So we still have all the same hands up, right? So you can put them down now, guys. I'll just wait for you to get tired. You're like, oh gosh. That critical infrastructure, you mentioned, we're just hooking computers up to everything, right? People are like, oh, well, it makes it easier because now if I need to go to this pump station, I can just drive past it and I hook up to it on the Wi-Fi's and everything's great. I don't even have to get out of my car. That's should you do that? Is that a good idea? Yeah, but I don't have to get out of my car, and that's why we'll always have jobs, is because people talk about we haven't done a lot to fix security. How can we be in this industry for 30 years and not have solved anything? And I don't think that's true. The life cycle of an exploit is significantly smaller than it used to be. You don't just trip over O days like you used to. It takes a lot more to find these things, but then we do things like go, we used to hook everything up with wires. Now we're going to do it with wireless. It's going to be wireless. And then there's no security on it. And then everyone goes, holy crap. And then they're like, well, we've created this thing called WEP. And you're like, still bad, right? So we take security, it gets better, and then we set it back 10 years by trying to hook it up to something new and shiny. And now we're taking the same, now we think we've solved the wireless thing or whatever, right? Have we? Huh? Wi-Fi cactus guy?
Negative.
And so now we're taking all these systems that are legacy systems, some of these literally 100 years old, and we're like, hook it to this thing, and then we'll put that sensor also on Wi-Fi, or just because that'll be easier to manage, and it's but none of those things were ever built with security in mind. No one ever thought that you would be remotely able to access that system in any scenario ever. The internet didn't exist when that system was built. Yes, let's hook it to a computer and put it online. It's horrifying. So if you're looking for, if you want to make some money, get good at SCADA, because when the lights start going out and the water stops running, you're going to be in demand.
And on that, get good at Shodan too, because it turns out there's a lot of SCADA on Shodan.
Weird.
We have a question in the front.
That was the worst route ever there, Bryce. I don't know what the hell was going on there. No, it's cool. Oh, you do you, but I just wanted to point it out.
Wait, there's a camera.
I'm just going to kind of chime in if that's okay. I don't really have a question, but about the knowledge gap between the academic world and the private public sector.
If you're going to chime in, you got to come up. How's it going? Good to see you.
I've actually known these guys for a couple years.
Yeah.
But, so I work at the University of Utah, and I used to be a student in CS, and I started working full-time in IT and kind of dropped down to school. But I wouldn't advise that. I love working full-time. It's great. But anyway, I guess I'm on the right side of these chairs. Anyway, so from observing things at the university, though, because I work with students all the time, the gap that I kind of see is just that the curriculums get a little bit behind. And that's just because the professors, it's a hard job, right? They have to keep up every semester with new material. But with an industry like this, anywhere in technology, things change daily or by the second, as you all know. So trying to bridge that gap is near impossible. So in my opinion, the best thing you can do is just stay teachable and stay curious. Because once you get out of school, you're not done learning at all. Like, you've got to keep learning in the professional world every day. And that's just kind of my 2 cents on it, but.
Yeah, I think that's fair because you're also, you're expected, one, to update the textbook, but also be a professor. Like, it's hard enough for us to stay current, right? But then to also write the textbook. And I guess I should, I dropped out, college wasn't my thing. I wrote a book instead, which they like at hiring managers like that too. So it took the place of the degree. So if you're going to drop out, write a book. But I guess, yeah, that's fair to say. Like, it's already hard enough for us to keep learning, but then to also try to have a class at the same time.
For me, college was like an experience for learning how to learn. Like, I didn't have a lot of classes that were particular to like computer science things I didn't already know, and then the other classes I wasn't really interested in, like English. But I learned how to learn, and that was something, and it gave me the confidence to know that I know how to learn things for the future. So I totally agree with you.
Cool.
And then also with professors, if you find some that also work in the private sector, they tend to be a little bit more on top of the game. So it's kind of luck on if you find professors like that, but that's been the best way to bridge that gap that I've seen actually when you're in school at a university. And then also, like these guys already said, stay involved with the community, because I've learned more from going to conferences and just meeting people than I have from any textbook. So just, stay curious, and that'll help bridge the gap.
For sure.
Thanks for letting me join you for a second.
Oh, you can stay. We only got a couple of minutes.
You've earned your way up
we'll
here.
Share this one.
Yeah, there you go.
There's one back there.
So this is going to go along with some of this stuff. Just the breadth of security in general is just a little overwhelming. So I'm in InfoSec right now, but I work with a very, very small team, so I'm involved in a lot of different aspects. I certainly want to focus on certain areas, but honestly, everything is interesting to me. I feel like it would be beneficial to get really good at something, but there's so many things that interest me, it's kind of hard for me to do right now. So my question is, I guess, how did you guys decide kind of what you wanted to focus on, first of all? And then, do you think it's good to really focus on something or to have a good breadth across the board?
For me, I'd say absolutely breadth, because I don't really have a focus. Like, I do Wi-Fi stuff. Before that, I was way into web pen testing stuff. I've done DevOps, a ton of DevOps. I think they all go hand in hand, though. It's like all these skills are necessary in order to secure an infrastructure, especially if you're on a small team. You're going to have larger roles, right? You're going to have more things that you've got to do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think just be cognizant of the fact that you're only one person and you can only do so much. So don't hold yourself to be, the Neil Wyler of threat hunting, for example. But make sure that you know that you can only do so much in the time you have, but like give it your best, and go after the stuff that you're most passionate in. For me, stuff just naturally gravitates out. Like, my interest in Wi-Fi just kind of grew and grew and grew, and it's like I'm passionate about it. I love it, and it blew up into a project.
Yeah, I think that was like for me too. I have always been like the packet guy. Like I would bathe in PCAPs all day. Like I love it. I just love it. I don't know. Like some people are like, why? How can you even look at that? Like they go cross-eyed looking at packet captures. I just, for some reason, I just do it. So for me, it was just kind of, I am a generalist. Like I do a lot of random stuff, and I like to know if like a new technology comes out, then I want to learn about it and everything. And it does help to have that general knowledge base for my role. But even within my team, the other hunters that are within RSA, we all have a specialization, right? So, and that exists in anyone. Like analyst bias is a thing. Some people are just become better at certain protocols even than others. They just get them, and that's okay. Like, but figure out what's that thing for you, and then that can be your focus on the side.
And like, what keeps you up at night? Like, what keeps you going? What wakes you up in the morning to go do that thing? What is that? For me, that definitely recently has been wireless and data analysis.
And I think it's good to be a generalist until you figure out what your specialty is. I kind of came at it from the opposite. I knew what I wanted to focus on, and it kind of bit me in the ass in some ways because there was so much more to security that I had to learn. So I think until you figure out what your focus you really want to focus on, learn as much as you can in all areas of security, I think is just a smart thing to do.
So I'm a system and network administrator, so I'm kind of younger in the field, and this whole security thing has always just kind of been a hobby for me on the side because my husband's really into it and my friends. But I guess my answer would be just kind of like exactly what she just said. I've been a systems and network admin for 7 years now, but the job hasn't gotten stale because there's so much to do within it. But I have been recently looking more into different job paths and more towards the security and networking side. So just kind of follow your interests, and if you start getting bored or stagnant, recognize that in yourself and do something else, do something more. There's a question back there somewhere.
I don't know. I don't think we're at, do we have time? We have time. Yeah. Check the time. One more? One more.
Last one.
Who's it going to be?
Uh-oh.
Fight.
Uh-oh.
All right. We got very animated.
Less a question, just more of a comment.
Oh, get up here.
Grab chairs. So,
You'll have to stand.
the oldies but goodies, I think, are still valuable for people to learn. Smashing the stack for fun and profit.
Totally.
Still usable. Microsoft has gotten really good. Other companies have gotten really good. But we have thousands of eager developers creating vulnerabilities every day as fast as they can.
Bless their hearts. I've got a mortgage, so I'm really stoked about those developers.
Developers.
There was a breach at a power station in the Ukraine. They had human interfaces still running Windows XP. So smashing the stack, still valuable. So are a lot of these other old vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I also agree just from a standpoint of know where you come from. All right, know the security history. And people will complain about security now who don't understand how wide open things were before. Like I almost like you get a little bit of that. I feel like a fraud sometimes where I'm like, oh yeah, no, like I've been hacking since like 1989, right? So it's like, yeah, but that was just called logging in back then, right? So like, were you really hacking or are you just logging in? Like whatever, but I've seen it get increasingly more difficult to be successful. The problem is you're still always successful. So. That it?
I just want to thank the panelists for coming down. I know some of them traveled quite a bit and
without being attacked.